Thanks, Colleen Packett. I'm the superintendent of District 56, and thanks for joining us. My intention for this evening's meeting is to briefly go through our metrics and how we're using metrics to make the decision on bringing kids back, how we ended up with the plan that we shared with you on Monday, and where we stand right now as far as the number of completions on the survey that we sent out that will help us furthering our preparation for the possible return to school. I'm not going to take this time at this meeting to go through our plan with you page by page. It's a fairly lengthy document. It has lots of answers to things. There are still remaining questions out there, and we're aware of those questions, but most of those questions require us to have a better handle on the numbers to get into the weeds with certain questions that people might have. So I'm not going to go through the plan today. Everybody has a plan. If you don't have the plan, please reach out to the district office. We'll make sure a copy gets sent to you. And so I'm going to start with talking about the metrics. As I explained at our board meeting last week, the plan that we're sharing with you will depend upon the status of the metrics at the time of our plan for return. So if you've looked at our plan and you've seen that tentative calendar that's contained in the plan, that calendar is for the tail end of October going into November, and it's clearly marked tentative in red. That is because no matter what date we give you, any plan we're going to employ will be impacted by our current metrics. And by metrics, I mean what Lake County Health Department is sharing and stating is our current situation with regards to incident rate of COVID-19, both in the county and in the zip code areas that we serve, the testing turnaround data for Lake County, and the positivity rate for our zip codes that we service. So I'm monitoring all of that daily. I'm on the Lake County Health Department's website. If you want to monitor that daily, you can also do that. You just go to the Lake County Health Department's website, go into their COVID-19 updates, and select the data. In the COVID-19 data section of the Lake County Health Department, you'll find the school hub. There's a dashboard for schools. And in that dashboard, you see all the current information that's up there. What's important for you to know is that's divided into two sections. The top section is for the county, and the bottom section is allowable for us to put in zip codes, and then it takes all that data and it pushes it out as it has right now. There's a significant difference in the data for the zip codes and the data for Lake County, and that difference is that there is a lag of about 2 to 3 days in the update to the county information. So the metrics that we're getting is being taken from across the county. Anytime someone goes in to be tested for COVID, they collect information on you if you test positive, and they share that with the zip code that you are saying is where you live. And what they have found is with all of that stuff coming, so if people went to the mobile one in Barrington or the mobile one in Lake Zurich, that information has to get sent to the counties for the people that were getting tested and attach it to their zip codes. And sometimes the zip codes aren't exactly correct. So for example, if you have folks that are in their mid to late 20s, some of them still use their parents' address, but that's not really where they're living. And so they have to sort all that out and tease that out so that the information that they're showing for the zip codes and for the county are accurate. So when you go to the Lake County Health Department's hub, you will see the Lake County information at the top. And as of this morning, or just a few moments ago, the Lake County information only goes as far as October 10th. That's because there's a lag and they're waiting for that. The information specific to our zip codes is live data, and it's being cleaned. So before this meeting, our incident rate for the zip codes that we service, which is 60031, 83, and 87, was at 12.4. That was our incident rate. Yesterday, the incident rate was one thing, and by the end of the day, it changed. And that's because that data is being constantly updated. There is no lag. to catching up with that. So we watch everything. We watch all of that data. And I meet, as I've told you before, with the Lake County Health Department every Wednesday morning. And they're following everybody's data and they're letting us know if anything has changed. Now, last week, our data across the county was creeping up. And in our zip codes, when you looked at it, we would not have been able to bring students back into our building with the data that we had just on our zip codes. Now, today, everything's starting to calm down a little bit. And what they're looking for is to see some stability in those numbers and your incident rates, your positivity rates, for what they're looking at 7 out of 10 days of the rolling average. Now, a rolling average in Lake County is they take the average positivity rate and the average positive testing rate, and they just create an average every day for the last 7 days. So every day it's recalculated using that 7 days. And what they're looking for is 7 out of 10 days where that incident rate is less than 14. And then we can look at bringing kids into the buildings. Last week, we were above 14. We were at 14.5, 15.9. At one point, we were at 16.7. Now, today, right before we started this meeting, we were at 12.4. So we're back under 14, and our positivity rate was 6.4, which is under 8. Both of those are very good metrics for us. What we now have the obligation to do is to watch that and see if 7 out of the next 10 days remains in that range, then we would be safe to bring kids back in. Now, on the calendars that you received, it showed a target date of November 2nd to begin bringing students back into school. So we will have to watch that. And if it looks like those metrics are changing at all, we may have to look at postponing those dates. So those dates, starting from November 2nd forward, are metric dependent. The week before on that calendar, you will have seen that Monday and Tuesday are slated for remote planning days. That's not going to change. We're going to keep those dates. Monday the 26th and October the 27th are going to be kept as remote planning days. There will be no school for students. There'll be no in-school remote for students. All of our staff are going to be working on setting up the cameras and everything they need in their classrooms to begin streaming live to students on Wednesday. And we will stream live Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of that week to make sure that all of our systems are there, our bandwidth is there, and then we're ready to go for the following Monday, November 2nd, which is the first day on that calendar. You will see we begin bringing students back into the building. And we made the decision to bring in the youngest grade levels at each of our schools, with the exception of River Trail. So kindergarten at Spalding, 3rd grade at Prairie Trail, 6th grade at Viking, and River Trail is going to be bringing in all 3 of those grade levels that first week. The second week, we bring in the next grade level up, as will River Trail. They'll bring in the next grade levels up for all 3 of their grades, and so on. And so all of those roll-in dates are going to be dependent upon where our metrics are. We are aware that we're stepping into flu season. We're aware we're close to the time where people were predicting there would be a rise in COVID-19. But we felt like we were at a point where we're ready to put this in place and prepare for all of this. It's entirely possible that the Lake County Health Department will call me personally and say, Colleen, your numbers aren't great. We advise against this. But we want to be ready for that. We're planning November 2nd as a go date. And so based on the numbers we have today, if we can maintain this moving forward, we will be able to employ our return to school plan as you received it. The plans we have, I know, look complicated when you look at them, and why they are that way, I will explain to you. We've taken the information that we received from our groups in planning when we started in April. We've taken information from my meetings with the Board of Education and their feelings. We've taken information from our teachers union and our administrative team, and we've put all that together to create the plans that you have. We know full well that no plan that we pushed out to anybody on Monday was going to make everyone happy. We knew that. There was no way we could create a plan that was going to make everybody happy. There are people that are unhappy that were even considering bringing children to school at all. There are people that are unhappy that we're just not bringing everybody back like a regular school year, and they don't understand why we are not doing that, even though there is guidelines and social distancing and mask requirements out there. There are still people that are very angry that we're not bringing everybody back in. So we knew going in that there was no way we were going to come out of any plan where everybody was like, yes, this is great, we love it. So all we could do is what we did, which was try to do the very best we can. I'm asking everybody to understand that we went into this with the best of intention, recognizing that not all of our staff are comfortable coming back, and trying to be as respectful about their concerns as we can. And so we listened, and the number one thing that we got back from all the sources of feedback that we've done, including some meetings that I had with teachers and administrators and some parents towards the very end as some final vetting and discussions of things, was parents were really concerned about not being able to keep the teacher they had starting in the beginning of the year. That was the number one concern that we heard through meetings with Board of Education, phone calls to me, emails to me, contacts with administrators and parents. That was a real concern. And there was really no way for us to avoid that. But we think we have a possible solution that will do the best we possibly can. So that was the number one concern. The second thing was, with all the possible plans that we floated, there was concern about not having a longer school day or a day similar to the day that the kids are having right now. And so that was our target. And we have been able to figure out a way to make that work at 3 out of our 4 buildings. And those plans are included in the plans that you have right now. The middle school at Viking is a much more complicated, challenging location. And so the plans that we put into place there look different, and we're aware that they look different. Middle school kids had changed classes, and they have coursework and classes that are attached to Skyward. And in order to do anything different, we would have had to completely dismantle our database, redo our population of our database with student classes and assignments, and Skyward was unable to help us find out a way to do that in a manageable amount of time. Normally it takes us almost the summer to build all of that, and they could not find an alternate way for us to do that without losing our old system. So we would have had to scrap everything and rebuild it, and we need to be able to communicate student grades, attendance, and all of that by quarter to the state. And so we were really struggling with that. And by creating the half-day schedule that you've received, it met some needs and desires of faculty, particularly at the middle school, which gave an opportunity for kids to get in school every day live. And the only way we can do that is by doing an A/B half-day option in any of the buildings. And with the older kids, they're a little bit more independent. We felt that we would be able to keep their classes and their courses, get every kid in the building, live instruction from some teachers every day in their classrooms. And by rotating the courses, A schedule and B schedule, a different group of children will get live language arts and live math every other week. So not one group will always get the live instruction in their language arts and math, and the other kids never do. That's why we did that, was for equity of access to instruction. At the K-5 level, they felt that the longer day, this is a way we could provide that longer day and go every other week. And that met the needs of faculty, and parent feedback for the younger kids was that they weren't interested in having those half days. They were also not interested in doing every other days. They felt that parents couldn't work around that. So this is how we ended up with this plan. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. You know what's ideal? Ideal is if I could bring everybody back, and I can't do that. So we are working really hard with the very best of intentions to come up with this plan. And some teachers are thrilled. I did a staff meeting the other day where teachers were asking good questions and really concerned. And I had a teacher who was crying, and I thought, boy, she's really unhappy and she hates this. But it turns out she was crying because we were going to bring her kids back so she could see them. And so for those people, I'm thankful that we're able to do that. For parents that this isn't going to work and it makes your life more complicated, I feel horrible that we're not able to provide something that meets for everybody. Where we are right now with our survey is right before we started with the technical difficulty. We were at about 640 people completing our survey, which is about a third of our population. So we really need people to go in and make a selection by Friday. I know full well that it's likely not everybody will do that. And so then we have to start calling everybody like we did for registration this year, because everybody does have to make a selection so that we can continue to plan the intricacies at each building. Each building operates very differently. And so we need those numbers so that our principals can get in and hammer the details of what happens once those kids are inside the room. Now, it is entirely possible that by the time this is all done, we don't have as many kids signing up for in-school remote as we would think, and we may able to be running strictly A groups across the district, which would mean those A kids would come all day and do their courses. But if we have to have 2 groups, we have to do the AB schedules that you are receiving. And we will keep you up to date as to where we are with those numbers once we know those numbers. I don't expect to have those numbers until the middle of next week or possibly later, depending on how easy it is to get a hold of all the families that we need to get a hold of to have them make their selections. We had a great turnout of our original survey, the one that we were just kind of testing the waters to see where we were at. We had like 1,400 responses. So we're very hopeful that we can get there, because then that's a lot fewer phone calls and a lot fewer people we have to get a hold of. So that explains to you the metrics. It's important that you remember the metrics guide everything. I gave you a little bit of background on how we ended up with this plan. Any updates to the plan, we will certainly put out as soon as possible to you. And then the numbers of where we're at. So now I'm going to look at the questions, and I'll go through as many of the questions as I can. I just have to open it. Okay. So can my student self-certify and get on the bus without a parent? Certainly, if you've walked your child through this and it's a child who's old enough to take their temperature, I don't think it's something a kindergartner can do, but I would certainly think that a 4th, 5th grader and on up could certainly do that. They have to check their temperature. They have to do the self-certifying process. And what we're asking is for those kids that are coming into the building, I know it's convenient if it's on your phone to do it, but we're asking that you do it on the student's iPad. And the reason we're asking you to do it on the iPad is when you self-certify, you will get to a point where there'll be a green bar across the front of your screen, and that means you're good. You can come into the building. The date's on the top, and there's a green bar. The way we're hoping this will work is when kids are ready and we're prepared to open the doors, they will walk up and simply hold up their iPad, and we will see the green bar, check the date, and we know they're ready to move forward. With them doing it on your phone, we will get it on a spreadsheet, but when we have kids walking in the door, we want to expedite that. We don't want kids standing outside, and we can't let them in unless they've self-certified. And if it's bad weather, we don't want to have kids, no sorry, no sorry, no sorry. So if they do it on their iPad, we will work with them and train them so that they know when they're getting out of the car, they've got their iPad open to the app and it's self-certified. If they're getting off the bus, they're going to know they have their iPad open to the self-certification. They get in the line to come into the building 6 feet apart. They walk through. It's scanned and checked by our staff at the door. And then any student who doesn't have it done is not going to be allowed in. They'll have to go and through a self-certification process with our school nurse. Now, we'll do that with kids who forget. But if it's a regular thing for a student who just can't get it together and never self-certifies and continues to come to school, we're not going to be able to continue to do that. So we've got to work on this together as a partnership. If you have questions on the self-certifying app or how to find it on the iPad, I believe we pushed out a video on it. We can certainly push that out again. And we can also create a link to that on our website so that you can find it. It's not difficult at all. The most important thing, though, is that you have a thermometer so you can check kids' temperatures. Okay, what's the difference between in-school remote learning and this proposed hybrid plan? So I will tell you, here's the biggest difference between in-school remote and this plan. In our in-school remote program, which has been working very nicely for its purpose, you have probably anywhere from 25 to 35 kids possibly in a very large space, which is allowable by the law. You can have up to 50 in a large space if they're socially distanced. And our kids certainly are socially distanced, wearing masks. But in that space, you have 6th graders, 8th graders, kindergartners, 2nd graders, 3rd graders, and we're running around monitoring and making sure all those kids are where they need to be. And we don't know where they all have to be because they're all on a different schedule. So when our students return to school, if they were in my classroom, they would come to my classroom, I would be there, and I would be able to just make sure that every kids are where they're supposed to be. They would be with me while I'm teaching via my device because I still have children at home, but they would still have to be socially distanced in their desk from their classmates in their classroom. Just because there's going to be fewer kids in the classroom doesn't mean that kids now get to work in small groups. Doesn't mean they get to go on the floor and work with manipulatives. The teacher isn't going to be crawling on the floor with them and helping them in kindergarten with that. They may have access to some things at their desk that they will have for the rest of the year because nobody else can touch them and we have to clean everything. But it's still going to be remote instruction. The teachers are not going to teach to this group and then turn around and teach to this group. It's going to be simultaneous teaching going on. One of the things that we feel confident about is in all of our classrooms years ago, we installed something called a sound field, and that brings sound in through the ceiling. And so we've got it set up so that those students at home who are asking questions will come through the speakers of the classroom and everybody will be able to hear them. We've purchased microphones so that the sound system works with the kids being able to hear the teachers from a remote location, and we've tested it out. And it seems to really work, but that week in the end of October, we're going to be setting up every classroom and making sure everything's working the way it's supposed to. But it's not real instruction. To be clear, we are still not doing real instruction. We can't do that until we have a vaccine and the ability to not do social distancing at 6 feet. I had to explain that to our staff and say, you're not going to be sitting next to a student hand on hand doing the things that you normally do in a classroom because then you're breaking social distancing, and we don't want that to happen. And I can guarantee you it's super hard not to do that. I supervise in that in-school remote program, and when a student is lost, you go over there and you touch their iPad, you get them where they need to go, and then you walk away, and then you sanitize, and you just move forward, and you're trying to do the very best you can to keep kids going. It's going to be very different in a classroom because in a classroom, you're going to have about 7, maybe 8 kids, depending on how many people choose to come back, which is a way different scenario. 7, 8 kids all supposedly on the same thing, having the same conversation, having discussion with one another on the same topic is different than 35 kids in a large space all over the place. Somebody's having gym, someone's going to do a trombone lesson, this kid's doing a meet, this kid's on seesaw. That's very different than what we would see in our classrooms. Is it perfect? No, but it's what it is. Will teachers be available at school for in-person instruction? So if I'm understanding, you're asking me who's doing the instruction in the classroom. It is our teachers. Right now we're working with our staff. The vast majority of our staff will be in their classrooms, teaching from their classrooms to the kids that are there and to the kids that are staying remote, pushing in. So the only thing that's going to look different to the kids at home who have been with their teacher is that instead of the teacher teaching from their kitchen, they're going to be teaching from their classroom. And so, yes, they are going to be teaching live, and they'll have kids in their classroom and their kids at home. Is there any plan on moving back to the original start times for schools? Not right now. Not right now. Right now, we're coordinating with the same schedules for many reasons, but because of transportation and siblings and the shortened day, we're trying to set it up in a way that we know we can manage it. And that's one of the things we're going to do. Will all returning students be required to get tested for COVID? At this point, no. The state of Illinois, as of this morning, is releasing some COVID tests to schools, but they're only releasing 15,000 COVID tests to schools in the state of Illinois. So I don't know what the likelihood is of our district receiving tests in that process. There are some students who are, or districts rather, who are purchasing tests. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to have tests present. Right now, that is not in our plan. My child's currently in in-school remote. If you at least like the in-school person, will she be able to attend? Yes. If your child is currently enrolled in the in-school remote program, they're going to school live, to be clear. They'll be placed in one of the A groups or the B groups, and they'll leave in-school remote, and they will go to their classes live with their teachers. When that day is done, they'll return to the in-school remote program until the 2:45 pickup. If it's a day when they're not supposed to be in their classroom live, then they would also have in-school remote available to them. Will we know who their teacher will be before we must make a decision? I'll tell you what, the answer to that will be a no and then a yes. So no, I need you to decide if you're coming back in. We've got to have those numbers. And right now there's a delay between us needing that numbers and getting the medical forms back from those teachers that are requesting to not come back to school. They have to get forms filled out by physicians, etc. And if there's a change in your teacher's classroom assignment, we would reach out to you directly, your school principal would. And at that time, if you want to say, nope, I'm out, or you want to make a change, we can work with you at that time. But please make a decision, assuming best case scenario that you're going to be with your regular teacher. And if there's a change and later you want to make a change, you can certainly opt out. But we've got to have those numbers in order for our principals to figure out, how am I doing art? How am I doing gym? How are we moving from point A to point B? Can I move my kids in middle school from this room to this room safely with social distancing? That is all number dependent. So we really need those numbers. Will we be able to send them to school on a trial basis and change our mind and keep them home? If you change your mind and you want to keep your kids home, you can do that. What if we don't want our kids in the in-person program? Can my child continue with the remote learning, including kids with IEPs? I'm not sure what the parenthetical piece is, but yes, you can choose remote learning or bringing your child live. Kids with IEPs will have the exact same option. You can stay home and continue remote learning. We'll continue with your remote learning plan as it was rolled out. You can come to school and you can have services in school. We will be following your remote learning plan. We're just going to be doing it live in school. I'm not sure if I'm answering that question correctly or not, but can siblings in different grades start on the same week? We're going to work really hard to keep all kids in the A group together at the 3 buildings that are following the same schedules. The Viking school is going to be kind of a hitch in that, and we recognize that, and I apologize for that. But we're going to try to do our very best to sync them as closely as we can. Let's see. Some other districts are already going back. Why did we choose November 2nd? Gosh, why did we choose November 2nd? Because I think that's the date we felt we would be ready. When will we know which group A and B they are in? Will siblings be in the same group? Yes, that's our plan, is to have kids in the same group. And as soon as we get those forms filled out by everybody, our principals are going to begin making their A and B groups immediately. They're chomping at the bit. They're watching the results coming in from the surveys. The sooner you fill that out, the sooner they have your information, the sooner they can start making their A and B groups and letting you know. Can we pick up our child at any time, or do we have to wait until the end of the day? The student day ends at 1:45, so you would be picking up your child at the end of the day. If you've got a dentist appointment or something like that, like you always do, and you need to pick them up early, call ahead. Visitors aren't going to be allowed in the building for pickup. So every school now has a sign on the front that says, please call, and you'll call in the office and you can say, hi, I'm here to pick up, and then we'll take care of it for you from there. Will there be an assistant in the classroom to help kids? The only assistants we have are the assistants we had from last year, those positions. We did not hire aides for every teacher. That's cost prohibitive at this point. Gurnee Park District, I was just emailing with the director of the Gurnee Park District today. They have our plan. They're going to continue with their program. More information about what they're going to offer will come out in a flyer from the Gurnee Park District. She hasn't gotten that to me yet. I'll ask her if she, I don't know if she'll get it by Friday for this week's communique, but as soon as I get it, we'll push it out, even if it means if it's coming out separately from the communique. Will the parents be able to choose morning or afternoon session at Viking? My suggestion for that is to shoot an email out to Mr. Jones at Viking School, and he can respond to you. The principals will be making their AB groups. Is the meeting being recorded? Can we watch it again? Gosh, yes, I hope so. We think it is. That was our intention. Can we opt to have some days at home and some days at school? That's not something we're currently offering right now. I would suggest also work with your building principals on that and see what this, there might be glitches with that, so I don't want to speak to something that I can't answer. I have one more question coming in. Okay, this is an important question. What happens if somebody gets COVID? So one of the things that's been really nice with having the in-school remote program is that we've been able to test some of our protocols and things that we had designed over the summer. And, you know, we have a number of kids in that program, and like kids are, they get earaches, they get stomach aches, they have stuffy noses. And so we are following the protocols as it's given to us. And anybody with any of those symptoms, they're self-certifying. They shouldn't be coming to school. If they come to school and begin to demonstrate those symptoms during the day, they go to the nurse. There's a nurse at all of our schools for this. And the nurse will send them home. And anybody who has a sibling with them, and this child has COVID-like symptoms, they all go home. So you might have an older child who's fine, but we're going to send them home, and they're going to have to log in remotely until we get a confirmation that that's not COVID-19. If it is COVID-19, we follow the protocols. The person who is positive with COVID-19 is out for 10 days, and they have to have a COVID test that shows that they're negative, and it's usually they have you wait 5 to 7 days in that span, because sometimes people will test a false negative early on and then positive later. And so you're out for 10 days. And if you have 48 hours at the end of that 10 days symptom-free, you can come back. Unfortunately, close contacts are out for 14 days quarantine. And that is because they may not have symptoms and they're going to develop symptoms. So we track it, we manage it. We're required to report those things to the Lake County Health Department. They reach out to the folks that might have COVID. Now we haven't, I don't even want to say that. It's been really good so far for us. Same things will apply to teachers and staff. If they have a child of their own that's positive, they'll be quarantined for 14 days as a close contact. What they will do is they will, if they're symptom-free, they can continue to teach remotely into the classroom. Or if they're sick, we'll get a sub for the 14 days. If they're out for just one day and they have to go get tested and they have a negative test, they can come back and teach. So we employ all those protocols with our staff just like we would our kids. I will tell you from my conversations every Wednesday with the Lake County superintendents and the health department, here's where the rubber hits the road. There are instances where you'll have a COVID positivity thing happen in a school. It's not rampant, but on occasion, more often than not, it is not a surprise to the family that that child had COVID-19. They have found cases where the parent sent the kid to school, even though they were told to quarantine because they didn't want their kid to miss out. Older kids are being sent to school with a positive COVID because they don't have symptoms, but they're on a sports team and they want them to play. We do this and we embark on this, placing trust in our community that people are going to listen to their medical professionals. And if a student has tested positive for COVID-19, they're not going to send them to school and they're going to keep their siblings home as well because they've been guided that that's what the quarantining is. The same thing is true for our teachers. We will be in contact with everybody. It's a lot of in and out if people are not managing it and following their medical guidelines. I know that seems really harsh, but that's the only instances where they're finding COVID-19 popping up in some places. Is you have a student that came, they knew they were positive, and then there was some exposure, possibly if they were on a bus. Now, if they're in our classrooms and they have COVID, it's likely that there's not going to be a lot of close contacts because we don't allow close contact. So even if we were to have had a COVID positive test of a student in our in-school remote program, kids aren't within 6 feet of one another there. Therefore, they're not considered a close contact. So that's how COVID would be handled. My screen went, hold on. What are the dates for the second quarter? The second quarter starts the week of the 26th. Of October, just like it was always planned. We are not changing the quarter. So the first week of the second quarter will be a remote week. And then moving forward, it'll be live for some, and then the next week live for more, depending on what you select. We did not change the quarters at all. We're continuing to teach. The only thing that has changed is those first 2 days of that week, that Monday, Tuesday, there is no school because it's our planning day and we got our techs coming in and the teachers are all going to be in setting their things up and making sure they're all working, and we'll go live again on Wednesday. But that's the first week of the second quarter. So that hasn't changed. Also, you'll be getting information on, I believe it's Tuesday, the 27th, for another supply pickup date at some of our schools. They're putting together materials of things that kids will need for second quarter. It doesn't matter whether you're going to be coming in or you're staying at home, you're going to need those supplies. Kids are going to be bringing their things back and forth to school. They're not getting lockers. They're not going to have their desks to keep all their stuff in necessarily. We are advised to make sure that we keep things with kids. And so that supply pickup will be necessary for kids to get some of the novels or the math mats and things like that, or some more art supplies. I'm not sure what teachers are putting in it. It's at every building, but that will be probably coming out on the coming week or so. You'll get information on how to pick up those supplies on that day for second quarter. Yes, you will get much more information coming from our buildings. Our buildings are all four very unique, and our principals, like I said earlier, are just waiting for those numbers. So encourage your neighbors to get on there and give us the information of whether they're coming back or not. And as I said before, once we get that and you find out what the plan is, what group your child's in, and you're working that out with the building principal, if you say, nope, we're out, we're going to stay home, that is your option at that point. You'll still need to come and get your supplies. But your rotations and your groups and all that will be coming from the buildings. What happens if the metrics spike after a return to in-person learning? That's a great question, and I had that answered for me today by Mark Pfister, who's the director of the Lake County Health Department. So what he indicated to me was, as I started the meeting and I said we have to have 7 out of 10 days with a rolling average of incidents between 7 and 14 for us to reopen. If we're there for November 2nd, we're open. If we're in school and 10 days later, then they spike. We're not going to send everybody home that day. We're going to watch it. And if the next 7 out of 10 days has a high level, we will probably pivot back to full remote. The only way that will change if something catastrophic happens with the numbers in Lake County and or in our zip codes. I will tell you that in the meeting this morning, the zip code he used as a reference for the entire county was 60031. Not great, but it helped me because he walked me right through some of our data. And he showed how we had this massive spike last week, which was not common to the entire county. Now, I can't attribute what that was to. I do know that they had what's considered an outbreak at a local establishment, and there were 14 positives at Jesse Oaks in their volleyball league, and I don't know if that had a trickle effect in our community. But we had a big spike, and then it dropped the next week. So we had to start our 7 out of 10 day monitoring all over again. And right now, as of today, we are finally back in a safe range, but that's just today. Yesterday, not there. So we will watch it, and we're looking for 7 out of 10 days. And as we get closer, we'll let you know. One of the things we're going to be doing is adding a spot on our website where you can go in and take a look at it and see what is the metric for today. And you'll see where we're at, so you can kind of monitor it yourself, or you can go to the Lake County website, and I'll include the link to that. I thought I did, but I couldn't find it in one of our communiques. I'll try to include it in Friday's communique, so you can go onto the website and link it. It's a very helpful website. I mean, you can go and check out what is it in another town in Lake County, maybe where you work, if you have interest with that. But if it spikes, we will watch it, and we may have to shut down and go back to remote. As a matter of fact, I know New Trier High School opened up last week, and within days they shut down because they had 10 cases with kids testing positive. However, there's a lot of districts in Lake County now that are going back. Most of them started this week. Some of them are starting next week. We'll be watching them to see what they have showing up on their radar. Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Tomorrow we'll be repeating this in Spanish. If you have neighbors or friends, let them know. If you have other questions, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to your building principals, shoot them an email, and watch our communiques, watch for text messages and emails, and we'll get that information. Any changes or updates, we'll be pushing out to you as soon as we can. And again, I thank you for your patience, and I apologize for the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning. And I wish you and your family good health, and thank you so much for your patience.